Hello guys, welcome to Shiv Kumar News. Welcome to my YouTube channel Shiv Kumar News. Here I am only reading the Hindu newspaper. My purpose and aim is improving my knowledge and English only, nothing else. Therefore, please support and guide me. This is our first article. New hurdles delay Telangana tunnel rescue efforts. Debris water seepage stop rescue team 150 meter away from the 8 trapped workers. Agencies explore possibility of removing debris around the damaged tunnel boring machine. Workers' conditions remain unknown more than 60 hours after a portion of the tunnel caved in. Big challenge. A team of the Navy divers from the Visakhapatnam discussed this tragedy at the mouth of the LSS LBC tunnel near Domplempeta and Nagar Kurnool district of Telangana on Monday. This article written by B. Chandrasekhar from Hyderabad. Uncertainty continues over the safety and survival of the 8 persons, 2 engineers, 2 technical staff, and 4 workers trapped 40 kilometers inside the under construction Sri Salem Left Bank Canal SLBC tunnel near the Domal Penta in Nagar Kurnool district of Telangana. As on Monday, their condition remain unknown even 60 hours after a portions of the tunnel collapsed on Saturday morning. Despite round-the-clock work, fresh challenge prevented the joint rescue team of personnel from the central and state agency from being able to cross the last 150-meter barrier. A few of them were able to reach the tunnel boring machine TBM, now covered with debris and mud, but could not use the equipment they took inside to trace the trapped man. Safe container. The 12-meter TBM head portion was said to be broken into two. There was a safe container in the head portions for workers to take shelter in emergency situation. It was not known whether they went into that container after the roof slabs came off and water seepage increased, according to officials of the Telangana Irrigation Department agency involved in the rescue operation were reviewing the condition at the TBM tail point and exploring the possibility of removing the debris around the machine, as it could lead to dislodgement of more mud and slush. Water seepage had only increased since the prefabricated reinforced cement concrete slabs collapsed. Expert team firms L&T, Indian Institute of Technology Madras, IIT Roorkee, who handled the Sikhara tunnel collapse in 2030, have joined the rescue operation along with various electronic gadgets. In addition to the Army, Navy, National Disaster Response Force (NDRF), State Disaster Response Force (SDRF), and National Highway and Infrastructure Development Corporation Limited (NHIDCL) personnel already involved in the operation. Trading the last 150 meters was proving to be a Herculean task due to the slush build up on the tunnel floor and the constant water seepage. With increasing intensity, the tunnel strength after 38 kilometers from the mouth is covered with 7 feet height of slush on the floor. A senior official coordinated the operation said removal of the debris and mud along with continuous dewatering has become necessary for the rescue team to make further headway. The conveyor belt used to bring out the material excavated by the TBM was being used as a ramp to each the trapped workers. This is image making the most of snow. Fun peaks, holidays, frolics on mobiles on the slope of Sonmarg as tourists take advantage of the snow-covered mountains some 80 kilometers from Srinagar on Monday. Picture click by Imran Nisar. In poll bound Bihar, Modi initiative fund transfer for farmers. Amit uh, Narendra Modi with Bihar CM Nitish Kumar during a rally in Bhagalpur on Monday. Article written by Amit Bhelari, Patna. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday initiated the transfer of 22,000 crore rupee into the bank accounts of 9.8 crore farmers across the country under the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi PM Kisan scheme from Bhagalpur in elections bound Bihar. Of the beneficiary, more than 75 lakh farmers are from Bihar, where assembly election is due later this year. Under the scheme, 2,000 rupee was transferred to each farmer account. This is given as the 90th installment of the PM Kisan scheme, which provide farmers with an annual income support of 6,000 rupee in their equal tranches. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, Union Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, and other minister and deputy chief minister of the Bihar were present at the function held on the airport ground. The opposition Rashtriya Janata Dal criticized Mr. Modi, saying he was visiting the state in the election year to shower lies and make empty promises. Speaking at the event, Mr. Modi said he had a dream that the every kitchen in the world should have at least one products grown by Indian farmer. He pointed out that in the past year, owing to the government's effort, India's agriculture export had increased significantly, which enabled farmers to get better prices for their produce. Mr. Modi said there were many agriculture products being exported for the first time, and now it was the turn of Bihar's makhana, fox nuts. Making makhana is superfood that now need to be introduced to the world market. Therefore, in this year budget, the announcement was made to establish a makhana board for farmers. But of the 365 day, I eat makhana for at least 300 days. He also used two occasions to attack the earlier government led by RJD Chief Lalu Prasad and the Congress, alluding to Mr. Prasad's earlier conviction in the fooder scam case. Mr. Modi said those who can eat the fooder of animals can never change the situation of farmers, but the NDA government has changed it. Empty promises. Earlier in the day, RJD chief slammed Mr. Modi over his Bihar visit by positioning a message on social media platform X. The Prime Minister in a Bihar to shower lies and make empty promises. It's an election year, so to mislead the people. The foundation stone and inauguration of the various center scheme will now be done symbolically from Bihar, but Bihar will get nothing, not nor will people of Bihar will give him anything, he said in the post. His son, former Deputy Chief Minister Tejasvi Yadav, also took a dig at Mr. Modi, saying the Prime Minister was visiting the state keeping the assembly election in mind. The RTI is now the right to deny information. Editorial written by Shailesh Gandhi is a former Central Information Commissioner. Citizens and the media must take up the responsibility to ensure that the original RTI Act is followed and not allow any distortion. Now we start the editorial. The introduction of the Right to Information (RTI) Act was a move that generated great hope among citizens since it recognized them to be the rulers of the nation. It empowered them to seek information from the government with dignity and respect. It looked as if the Swaraj that they had missed would be delivered to them. The act codified their fundamental right to information and was one of the best transparency laws in the world. It appeared that it would curb corruption and arbitrariness, with citizens being the vigilance monitor of their government. But it must be conceded it has fallen far short of our expectation, and the state of our democracy is not better. Within a few months, the government realized that this was a transfer of power from public servant to the citizen. In less than a year, it moved to amend the law which would have weakened the RTI Act, but there were widespread protests by citizens across the nation. Sensing the mood of the nation, the government dropped the amendment. A gradual erosion. The RTI Act has created Information Commission as the final appellate authority to implement the law. Most of the posts of the Information Commissioner were taken up the retired bureaucrats. After the working for decades as senior bureaucrat, it was difficult for them to hand over power to citizens and recognize that they were the rightful owner of the government. No attempt was made to select people with a record in transparency. Many of them looked at this job as post retirement since sinkers and worker only for few hours. While the national average of the disposal of cases by high court judges in over 2500 in a year, the national average of disposal of case by the commissioner was less than this. Given the fact that the complexity of cases before the commission is far less than the case before the High Court, each commissioner should have even been clearing at least over 5,000 cases in a year. While the law mandate a period of 30 days for the information to provide and the same period for the first appellate authority, it did not specify any time limit for the commissioner. Many commissions began to have the pendency of over a year. The right to information was being converted into a right to history. Many ordinary citizens could not pursue the issue of what was now a denial of information. The penal provision of the RTA Act were the teeth of the act, but most information commissioners were reluctant to use them. The government delayed appointing commissioner, which only increased the backlog. The clear message of various High Court judgment was that the exemption listed under the Section 8 of the RTI Act were restriction on a citizen's fundamental right and had to be constructed strictly as in the law. Parliament intended most information to be provided and crafted the exemptions carefully. The entire approach to a citizen's right to information changed in August 2011 when the Supreme Court of India held in Central Board of Secondary Education and ANR versus Aditya Bano Upadhyay an organization in paragraph 33. Some high courts have held that the Section 8 of RTI Act is in the nature of an exception to Section 3, which empowers the citizens with the right to information, which is deprived from the freedom of speech, and that therefore Section 8 should be constructed strictly, literally, and narrowly. This may not be correct approach. In paragraph 37, it made a comment without any evidence indiscriminate and in practice demand or in directions under the RTA Act for disclosure of all sundry information and related transparency and accountability in the functioning of the public authority and reduction of the corruption would be counterproductive, as it will adversely affect the efficiency of the administration and result in the executive getting bogged down with the non-productive work of collecting and furnishing information that should not be allowed to be misused or abused to become a tool to obstruct the national development and integration or to destroy the peace, tranquility and harmony among its citizens. nor should it be converted into a coup tool of operation or intimidation of the honest officials striving to do their duty. The justified treating RTI as an undesirable activity and labeling RTI user as outcasts. It justified not giving information and attack on RTI user just the subject of personal information. The second major blow came with the judgment in Girish Ramchandra Deshpande versus Center Information Commerce and organization in October 2012. An ARTI applicant Girish Ramchandra Deshpande had sought copies of all the memos, show cause notice, and censure punishment awarded to a public servant A.B. Lute. He had also sought to other details such as his movable and immovable property and details of the investment leading and borrowing from banks and other financial institutions. This was denied, claiming exemption under Section 8, subsection 1J. This section exempts information which relate to the personal information to disclosure of the which has no relationship to any public activity of interest or which would cause the unwarranted invasion of the privacy of the individuals unless the central public information official is certified that the larger public interest justify the disclosure of the such information, provided that the information which cannot be denied to the parliament or a state legislature shall not be denied to any person. A simple reading shows that the under the clause personal can be denied if it has apparently no relationship to any public activity or interest, or the disclosure of the said information would cause the unwarranted invasion of the privacy of the individual. The court did not rule on whether the information was an outcome of a public activity or its disclosure would amount to an unwarranted invasion of the privacy of the individual. It denied the information by reading only the first 11 words of the provisions and saying it was personal information. Most information can be linked to some person, releasing that it may be difficult for public information officer and other appellate authority to decide on what constituency privacy. Parliament have gave a simple test in the proviso that the information which would not be denied to parliamentary legislature would not be denied to any person. This can only have one meaning, that anyone claiming that the information will be denied to the citizens will make a subject statement that he will deny the information to parliament. It is well settled that the literal interpretation will be given to a statute if the sum does not lead to absurdity. And in Nasiruddin and other versus Sita Ram Agarwal 2003, the to SCC 577, the court has stated 37. The court jurisdiction to interpret a statute can be invoked when the same is ambiguous. It cannot rewrite or recast legislation. It is also necessary to determine that there exists a presumption that the legislature had not used any superfluous word. It is well settled that the real intentions of the legislation must be gathered from any language used. Girish Ramchandra Deshpande amended the RTI Act and has been used as a precedent in 6 subsequent court judgments and has become the gold standard to cover RTI into on RD on or right to deny information. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act take a cue from this, demands the RTI Act itself. There are other cases in which words in the law have not been accorded their usual meaning. A call to citizen to ensure that the RTI fulfill its original promises. We should go by the original act and not allow any distortion. Citizens and the media must take up the responsibility to discuss and defend it. Otherwise, we will have the dilution of 4 fundamental rights under Article 90, sub Article 1A of the Constitution of India. Fencing out interfaith relationship in the new India. Nidha Keskar is a doctoral researcher in the Department of the Political and International Study at SOAS University of London. Sobha Gormat is an independent journalist and researcher based in New Delhi. The enactment of the Uniform Civil Code, in addition to existing the anti-conversion law, is eroding individual rights and the fabric of India's pluralistic society. Now we start the editorial. On January 27, 2025, Uttarakhand became the first Indian state to implement the Uniform Civil Code (UCC), placing private relationship under this state surveillance. The official claim is that it will restore gender justice, create uniformity, and address administrative oversight. However, when they taken along with existing anti-conversion law, this mark a coordinated legal push to segregate community, not just in faith but also in love and daily life. The UCC is the final blow, ensuring that all forms of interfaith relationship are regulated in the New Delhi. The introduction of more hurdles, interfaith marriage already face immense social barriers. A survey 2014 of the over 70,000 response found that fewer than 10% of the urban Indians had family members who married outside their case. Interfaith unions were even rare. Barely 5% of the urban respondents reported any marriage in their family outside their religious. The Secular Social Marriage Act 1954 has administrative hurdles, including a mandatory 30-day notice period subjecting couple to security. Meanwhile, rigged anti-conversion law now in force in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Rajasthan, among several other states, have further criminalized religious conversion for marriage. This law creates bureaucratic trap as mandatory declaration, waiting period, and district magistrate approval. What better conversation for marriage was they emboldened vigilance group often linked to right-wing organizations to justify harassment, policing, and violence against interfaith couple, particularly Hindu Muslim. A new portal found that at least 63 of 101 police complaints invoking in the UP anti-conversion law against the Christians were filed by third-party vigilance group. Instead of the protecting individuals, this law provides legal cover for extrajudicial interventions, often with police complicity. Against the background, the UCC provisions on live in relationship take state scrutiny to a new extreme. Even information relationships are subject to surveillance. Live-in relationships are now legally required to be registered with district authority. This includes 16 pages application with official document, Aadhaar card, resident proof, seeking approval from the religious leader or community heads, and to notifying family member. The registrar must be information the couple parents or guardians about the relationship. Failure to register is punishable with up to 6 months and imprisonment and a fine of 25,000 rupees. These rules make it nearly impossible for couple, particularly interfaith one, to live without oversight. It is no surprise then that only one live-in couple has successfully registered its relationship in Uttarakhand. Others have sought legal protection from the High Court. Even as a Banerjee, the Bajrang Dal leader claimed to have source detail on live-in application. The ability of such vigilance to interfere in private relationship underscore how the UCC and anti-conversion law work in tandem to suppress interfaith union, a form of apartheid. The result is complex legal machinery that is actively working a segregate community, entrench religious division, and institutionalize a from a social apartheid. Individual cannot marry or even be in relationship with the so-called other without prior legal approval. These laws create barriers for interfaith couple at every stage, whether in marriage or informal cohabitation. This combined system function in three ways. First, by strengthening traditional religious institutions. The requirement or religious certification in both UCC and anti-conversion law formalize the power of religious leader over personal relationship in a secular democracy. This contradicts the constitutional guarantee of individual freedom in reinforcing the ideal that relationship must be adhere or to religious or community norms rather than personal choice. Second, by enabling the family to exercise gather control over women, both law disproportionality impact women who often face pressure, coercion or even violent punishment for engagement in interfaith and intercaste relationship. By notifying the family of live-in relationship, the UCC makes women more vulnerable to honor-based violence and family control. Women in interfaith relationship are often framed as victims of the manipulation, stripping them of the agency and reinforcing patriarchal control over their choices. Third, by the providing legal cover of vigilism, right-wing vigilance now have a legal framework to monitor, report, and harass interfaith couple married unmarried under the guise of the preserving tradition and law. When an interfaith couple attempt to register a civil relationship and to or convert for marriage, vigilance group or are often the first to know due to the legal requirement of public notice and family notification. Amid rising hate speech and polarization, this law effectively legal and interest with separation of religious community, preventing interfaith interaction at all levels, similar to the apartheid era South Africa or Nazi Germany, which banned interracial union. The effect of the UCC and anti-conversion law is to institutionalize the segregation by making the interfaith relationship, whether martial or informal, almost impossible. It could be catching on. Looking ahead, Uttarakhand UCC could be a blueprint for other states. Rajasthan High Court recently considered mandatory registration of live-in relationship closely following the Uttarakhand's model. The Rajasthan Assembly enacted an anti-conversion law. Gujarat is also contemplating a draft UCC model on similar lines. These legal trends point toward a broader movement towards the systematic regulation of personal relationship. In India, love and faith are deeply personal and subjective experience that each individual defines on their own terms. These legal developments not only threaten individual rights but also undermine the very fabric of individual pluralistic society. Number of Hindu pilgrims who arrived in Pakistan from India: 109. Over 100 Hindu pilgrims from India arrived in Lahore on Monday to attend the religious festival at Shri Ketas Raj Temple in Pakistan's Punjab province. The Hindu pilgrims have come from Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Haryana, and Rajasthan to visit their holy places. Saudi Arabia commends to polio eradications effort. 500 in dollar million. Saudi Arabia has reaffirmed its $500 million pledge to the global polio eradication initiative. The WHO said the funds pledged in April 2024 will be used to help and the wild form of polio in Pakistan, and Afghanistan and stop outbreak of variant polio. The population of Iraq, as per its first census in 40 years, 46.1 million person. The final result of Iraq first census is nearly 40 years release on Monday show the population has reached 46.1 million in 2009, and an unofficial count estimated the population at 31.6 million. Officials have called the count a milestone. Number of people killed in eastern DRS since January: 7,000. The Congolese premier said the vigilance ragging in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has killed more than 7,000 compatriots, many of them civilians. The M23 armed group has seized large swathes of eastern DRC. The increase in growth of shipment of personal computer 3.18%. The growth in the Indian consumer PC market has been on an upward trajectory driven by gaming and AI powered PC. HP lead the market with a 30.1% market share in 2024 and 30% share in December quarter. This is short foreign short news. Geneva. UN warns era of dictators can happen again. Calls for action. UN Right Chief Volker Turk warned on Monday of a return to an era of dictators, citing past atrocities such as discriminates attack on civilian population, transfer and child labor. He urged urgent action to prevent such very dangerous event, cautioning the history could repeat itself. Brussels, European Union's is the sanction on the key Syria economic sector. The European Union on Monday is sanction on Syria energy, transport and banking sector in a bid to help the country's reconstruction after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. The move aimed to support an inclusive transition with sanctions potentially reinstated or promises are broken. Manila. Philippines and Japan agreed to further enhance their defense partnership. Japan and Philippines agreed on Monday to deepen defense ties amid a severe security environment. Japanese Defense Minister General Nakatani said they will enhance the military exchange, establish a strategic dialogue, share intelligence to counter China's assertiveness in the East and South China Seas. Banda 8. Indonesian man sentenced to public flogging for gay sex. A court in Indonesia of H province sentenced on Monday two men to public flogging for gay sex, with one receiving 85 lashes and the other 80. Both the men students at the university were found together by local residents in a rented room in November. H enforced Sharia law unlike the rest of Indonesia. From the now our start English practice session. Critics K. Subramaniam, P. Upandre, Urvashi want to become a academic. It is not a CA academic but academic. The stress is on the third syllable D. The A in the first syllable is pronounced like the A in cat, and the CA is the second syllable sound like the A in China. Them rhymes with them. I see. So it is academics, correct? Yes, that's right. Anyway, as I was saying, Urvashi wants to become an academic. I would not take anything she says seriously. She is an airhead. An airhead. What does it mean? An airhead is a stupid person, someone who speaks or acts unintelligently. You are right. Well, Urvashi may be an airhead, but she is a rich airhead. Do you know she has a house by the lake? By the lake or near the lake? What the difference is? Difference. When you say you live by the lake, it means you are very close to the lake. It is possible to see the lake from your house. And when you say you live near the lake, it means you are little distance away. Is that correct? Right, you could be as far as 5 or 10 miles away. You see, near it is a relative concept. For example, I can say Madras is near Hyderabad, although there are hundreds of miles separating the two cities, but I can't say Madras is by Hyderabad. In other words, something that is by you is closer than something that is near you. Oh, Urvashi is celebrating her birthday at the Taj this weekend. I know. Are you planning to go? No, I don't plan to go. Which is correct? Planning to go or a plan to go? Both are acceptable. You can say I am planning to see Lion King or I plan to see Lion King. You could also say I am planning on seeing Lion King and I plan on seeing Lion King. But remember, when you use on the verb that follow, it takes the taking From I plan to going to Atlanta next week. I plan on buying a new pair of jeans. But you don't plan to attending Urvashi's party. No, do you want me tell her anything? Yes, tell her Urvashi Urvashi, take it easy Urvashi, haha. Published in the Hindu on July 25, 1995. So guys, this is today our quiz, the daily quiz. This is a quiz on cricket. India beat Pakistan by 6 wickets in the ICC Championship Trophy on Sunday. Here is a quiz on one of the most heated rivalries in cricket. Quiz made by Vignesh P. Venkatesh. Question number one, in which year did India and Pakistan face off in a World Cup A for the first time? Question number two, how many players have appeared for both countries? Who are they? Question number three, who has scored the most ODI runs in the fixture? Question number four, who has the highest score in the single ODI match between the two nations? Question number five, how many times has Pakistan won a match between the two in an ICC tournament? This is the question. Name this batsman who set a 6 on the last ball of the match to win the 1986 Australia Asia Cup. This is previous year quiz answer. Question and answer to the previous day daily quiz. The relevance of Johnny Carlos Chable and Abdullah Fad Jandali to Steve Jobs' life. They were his biological parent, and he was adopted by Paul Reinhold and Clara Jobs. The 1971 book by spiritual teacher Ram Dass, Be Here Now. Jobs took a job as video game designer in early 1974 at this company, Atari Corporation. This person said he did not know technology. He never designed anything as hardware engineer, and he did not know software. He wanted to be important. His Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak Jobs dated this music icon of the 1960s John Bees. The 1984 commercial was shown at this sporting event and Super Bowl. Name the company Jobs founded in 1985 and the studio from which he bought Pixar, Next, and Lucasfilm. The significance of the word oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. Answer according to his sister Mona Simpson. These were the last words spoken by Jobs. Visual. Name the designer who created the famous turtleneck top. Answer is a Miyake. Early bird who gave answer. Shivam Yadav, Dudu Jay Ditya, Rajiv Ganguly, Siddhartha Vishwanathan, Banali Viswahas. So guys, this is today one important vocabulary word is spare. It is a adjective. Hindi meaning is come ghana, small in number or amount and spread out over an area. Synonymous mere, maigre, scanty. Antonyms abundant, plentiful. Examples 10, many slopes are rock filled with sparse vegetation. So guys, this is today video. Please like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel for further more update and more videos. Press bell icon for notification. Thanks for watching. We meet in tomorrow next video. Jai Hind.